to another conversation with Lara Wentworth. Today on Conversations, I have the very exciting Elva Zhang with me, who after quite a while of trying to organise this, which we'll talk about in a minute, we finally got here in the end. So Elva is a lawyer, and she's been a lawyer for about 8 or 9 years. She's a corporate counsel for ANL, which is an international shipping line. But more interestingly and excitingly, she's also the founder of Peace Lab, which is what we really want to talk about today. Welcome, Elva. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me, Lara. Finally happened.
Finally happened. Persistence pays off, I have to say. So tell us a little bit. It does. Tell us a little bit about who you are, Elva, and how you got to be where you are today.
Oh, okay. So my name is Elva Zhang, and I came to study in Australia as an international student many years ago. So I did my arts law degree at Melbourne University, and then I just was qualified here. I chose to stay here to practice, and so I've been working as a corporate counsel with ANL. It's a Melbourne-based shipping line with them for about 7 or 8 years. But that being said, in between, I went to Geneva, Switzerland. I pursued a master in international economic law in between as well. So
wow.
I took a 2 years break in between. And now I'm back. But after 2015, I went back to work for ANL, and been with them since.
Fantastic.
So around a similar time, 2015, I also created Peace Lab.
Nice.
Mentioned.
Yes.
Peace Lab was created, initially I think it happened as a result of my own experience in Geneva. When I went to Geneva, I think before I went to Geneva, I always thought working in international law was my passion. But after my time spent in Geneva, I realized I want something different.
Yeah. And
so I had to really reflect upon my experience in Geneva, or my true self, my purpose. I was wondering, my passion, so I realized I had a great passion and interest in well-being, how to help us to better connect with ourselves. So that's why I initially created the Peace Lab, also I think it was a result of my own experience studying as an international student, or my experiences of anxiety and stress.
Yeah.
Also the normal kind of a daily stress working as a junior lawyer, a lot of negative self-talk. Yeah. I think there was a combination of factors contributing to me creating Peace Lab. And then in the past few years, I grow with Peace Lab as well. So apart from initial idea of meditation, I also started my journey into understanding a bit more about the brain. Because a lot of my prior experiences was more from the Eastern philosophy. Yeah. And the philosophy loves talking about the mind. Yes. But I felt as a lawyer, I need to know a bit more about the brain as well to bridge the gap. So that led me to my journey into neuroplasticity in the past few years. And what I really found, which is amazing, is that I found a lot of meditation, mindfulness, the ancient wisdom and the teachings. They are quite linked with the modern day research as provided by neuroscience, especially how our brain is driven, is wired for change.
Yes.
And most importantly for me is we have this superpower in the sense of every time we learn something new, we in a way physically change our brain. And every time we are committed to generate a new thought, change our negative belief system about ourselves, we actually rewire different parts of the brain. So in a way, that's to me a superpower, changing your intangible mind, your thoughts, your emotions. We're actually contributing to the change of the physiological structure of the brain. So to me, that's the premises of Peace Lab. So what I say now is people say, so what do you do with Peace Lab? Easy. So for Peace Lab, the goal is to create well-being, positive change for individuals, but also I work with organizations through the combination of Eastern philosophy and the neuroscience. But the tools I love using is meditation, mindfulness, play, but also laughter yoga. So information coming from philosophy and neuroscience are really important. Yes. They must be matched with practices to really consolidate this information. So that's where I am, where we are. And also, I just mentioned to you before, in 2020, I embarked on a further master's in neuroscience, which is challenging for me because I've never done anything science. But I felt in order to better serve and contribute, and for myself, self-growth, also for other people, I wanted to understand better about the brain. So that's why I started undertaking this master course this year as well.
I'll tell you what, you are an absolute champion to study that much and to do what you do. It's no wonder it's taken me a while to grab hold of you so that we could do this interview. You're a very busy girl.
Great timing, I think, now, because I've been my first subject, I was saying, oh, it's really tough, on the brain, and it's also amazing to see how we thought about the brain 50 years ago even, and now thanks to the neuroimaging technology, and now I can share that with you. If we had this chat maybe in February, I wouldn't be able to share with you the challenges of studying neuroscience.
Yeah, it's divine timing. It is absolutely divine timing. So I just want to ask you, Elva, in terms of what you've learned through your studies and the philosophies behind Peace Lab, how have you been able to improve and help other lawyers improve the way they practice?
So first I'll start with myself, and I felt I'm a much better human being since I created the Peace Lab. And I think that's something to me is quite astounding, and I do share that with my participants in the classes as well, because I'm a very strong believer to practice what you teach.
Yes.
And I have maintained my own meditation practices daily. That being said, COVID-19, I'll come back to that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
my daily meditation routine after meet. And I think because once I understand, I'm in control of my thoughts. And by changing my thoughts, I'm changing the brain, which then feeds back to a more healthy thought pattern. That's why I'm very mindful of, what am I thinking? What is my focus, my attention, my awareness? So by doing that, I'm not the victim of my unconscious or subconscious negative beliefs as much as before. And I'm very big on building a more loving relationship with myself. And I think when I was studying as an undergrad student at Melbourne Law School, I was extremely critical. And I think that's a pattern with a lot of lawyers and type A personality.
Yes, definitely.
And I think that's when I look back is I was overly critical, very perfectionist. And I was really a worse enemy with myself rather than a good friend. So in the past few years, through my own journey with Peace Lab, I was very committed to building a better, a more supportive inner relationship, right? Have a better inner dialogue with myself. So as a result of that, I really think if you actually scan my brain 5 years ago before Peace Lab and then right now, I think they would have a very tangible difference because I've changed. My thoughts have changed to a great extent.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah.
So my thoughts changed. I know by now the neuron connection would have changed, the pathway would have changed. So that's the first level, and I am the beneficiary of my own journey. That's first thing. That's what I think I want to share with other people. So in the past few years, initially I started teaching my public classes, but last year, 2019, I delivered 2 programs. The first one in May with the Law Institute Victoria, with mostly solicitors, and then October last year, in October, November, I ran 6 weeks weekly program with the Victorian Bar. And that second program, I have to say, gave me stronger impetus to undertake my master's degree as well. Wow. Because I know that when, it was quite amazing, Lara, last year when I was running program, especially for the barristers, I was very nervous, right? I don't know, like initially I was with a bit of a trepidation to go into the Vic Bar to run the classes, but week on week, 1 week after another, every week I would have about 20 barristers come into the class, right? Learn about how to better work with the brain, how to better work with the mind, and meditate. And the second last class was about laughter yoga, because I designed the program with Peace Lab programs. We first know about the brain. Then we work through how to work with the brainwave through meditation, how to build a better relationship with ourselves. Then we also touch upon positive emotion.
Beautiful.
But then in that last workshop, I used laughter yoga. And it's very hard to get barristers to laugh because as a profession, we take on this very serious demeanor as part of our trademark.
Of course.
But by the fifth week, I had 20 barristers I counted that day. And, we come in, we laugh, we're doing the laugh exercise. That was amazing. Yeah.
It's amazing because we're all human. This is the thing. We're not robots. We're not mechanical. Lawyers are human beings, and we have emotions, and we want to laugh. And I guess there's a bit of a belief that lawyers don't like to do things that are a little bit kind of out of the box because we like black and white, sort of cut and dry, evidence-based. And anything else is a bit wishy-washy or a bit hoo-ha, But I don't know. I'm finding a lot of lawyers gravitating towards this sort of stuff. It's like, what else is out there? How else can I do things differently? How can I be happy? If it means I have to sit there cross-legged and meditating, or chanting Om, or doing anything a little bit different to what we already do, I'm finding they're becoming a little bit more open. So it's really refreshing. Yeah.
I think the things first, I think the external environment has changed a lot.
Yeah.
When we were at Melbourne Law School, when I first started meditation, I have to admit, I was meditating at home. I didn't tell any other my law school friends because 15 years ago, I thought that was a bit airy-fairy. I do not want to see this like airy-fairy law student, and too intrusive or whatever, because we're meant to be very rational. But I think now, 2020, like even the past 3 years, and I did a bit of work with Melbourne Law School, which is my home law school. Now they have a well-being, advocate center for them as well, and they actually run meditation and classes. I also did a laughter class there as well, because now there's sufficient scientific study, thanks to neuroscience, neuroplasticity, to demonstrate practice like meditation, how it can change the brain. I think even a few years ago, if I recall correctly, there's a study coming out from Harvard University, how it actually helps increasing the mass of gray matter through meditation as well. It's amazing. So I think now the external environment has changed. Our understanding has changed.
Yes.
Also because I think the lawyers and the legal profession, we are quite rational, right? So if you provide them with sufficient scientific information, the mind, the brain are very much relaxed. That's my own personal experiences.
No, I agree with you.
Yin said meditate or laugh. They were like, huh? What do you mean, right? But if I'm able to break down for them, saying why we need to do this, or why meditate in the morning, they're meditating, and during lunchtime, because the brainwave is more relaxed. The brain is coming up, waking up, and it's like, slipping back from delta to theta to alpha. That's a great time to relax for imagination. So they are, okay, that's why. Or I say maybe just, meditate during the evening time before you sleep, but you have to give them factual information, scientific reasoning. Same even with laughter. I go in, I say, just laugh. And I would explain when you do, say we did a laughter yoga exercise, I explain when you do it as exercise, the brain releases endorphins. It makes you happy. A simple smile makes you happy. Yeah. Because neuroscience has shown that when you smile with the eyes and the muscle, the brain, for whatever reason, it releases the endorphins because the muscle structure makes the brain to realize it's a happy sensation.
Wow.
Simple addition of science can make the lawyerly brain very relaxed.
That's true. No, you're 100% correct, because we're very analytical. We're trained to be very analytical, and unfortunately, even if we were not that analytical before we became lawyers, it becomes our new normal. And sometimes we need to see the rest of the world through those analytical eyes, and we process everything through that analytical mind. So whatever works. If we've got to grab it from whatever angle, I say, let's reach in and help lawyers become happier. But I want to ask you a question about COVID-19, because we are in the midst of a pandemic, and you and I were meant to meet a little bit earlier this year, and it didn't happen because you went to China for Chinese New Year, and you kind of tell us a little bit about what happened there.
I went back to China in January to visit my family because they're still in China. And before I went, I knew nothing about COVID-19 in China because I was only told by my colleague here. He said they were joking, said, "Don't bring the virus back." I was like, virus is it? And then I Googled. But then when I went back to China, even my family, we live quite far away from the epicenter. We didn't know too much about it at that time.
Yeah.
But a few days later, literally was the day after the Chinese New Year Eve, the rest of the country went into lockdown, the voluntary lockdown, similar to what we're going on here in Australia right now.
Yeah.
So you can go out, but for very essential services.
Yes.
The difference in China, though, because maybe the political system is different, the healthcare system is different.
Yeah.
So we were actually all asked to wear the masks. So I had a sense of anxiety, but it was different when we're in China, because you go out on the street, it's very empty, which is very rare for China, especially during Chinese New Year. If you do see a human being, they're all wearing the mask. It looks very confronting as well. And so my anxiety level was very high when I was spending the meant to be very festival time this year. Everyone was worried because when you turn on social media, it was reporting, all the death rate, confirmed cases in different provinces, like here we see now in different state or in different country. And for the first week, I was very scared because I wasn't in China for SARS, so I didn't have any reference point.
Right.
And even my family, even my friends who did go through SARS when they were in China, but back then there was no social media as available as today.
Yes.
So it really plays a huge role on the mind and the level of anxiety when we're constantly, overwhelmed by the news, by TV, by social media.
Yeah.
So the first week, as I said before, I didn't meditate daily. And the second week, I'm like, oh, what I'm doing, Elva? You've been like peace labbing, you're not peace labbing when you really need to. So I had to do a little adjustment. What I did is I really reduced my time spent on my phone. In China, we couldn't access Facebook, but they have WeChat. It's a similar platform. So I stopped reading WeChat news because otherwise I felt it's the end of the world every morning waking up. And also, I decided to watch a lot of comedy. That became the thing. Rather than like negative news, I'm not ignoring the negativity. I try to watch things are fun. They're still available for us. Third, I went back to my meditation routine. So after 2 weeks, I managed to come back to Australia. Then I did a 14-day self-quarantine. I thought, wow, great, And then this happened in Australia. Laura, it's funny because I had a comparison of my experience in China, and then the first 2 weeks of March, my anxiety level changed. In China, I was anxious. In Australia, I was a bit more fearful.
Wow.
It was very interesting. And I think especially now, I can go back and reflect upon these two phases. I felt for me, the phase in China was part one in the sci-fi movie. The phase 2 outside China in Australia, in Melbourne, was part 2. The reason I think why I was fearful was maybe because in China, everyone was wearing the mask. So, okay, I feel safe. Although in China, I was scared. But here, I wasn't sure what to do. I was a little bit like uncertain, and in China, I don't have to take public transport. So I think that was why, and it was very interesting. It was subtle, but also very profound. And then the tipping point for me in Melbourne was that I said, oh my God, I didn't really tackle that inner peace. I thought I did manage my inner peace. There's a different layer to it.
Wow.
I think that's the beauty of self-understanding and self-learning. So when the first 2 weeks of March, my meditation, I had to really go very deep because I was curious. I was like, what is driving that fear? Fear has many facets. But for me, I think I wasn't fearful for like job security or financial security. For me, it was more primal fear for survival instinct about that safety and security.
Sure.
So it was really cultivating that sense of trust in myself. And also I know for immune system, when you're anxious, we are awakening our immune system.
That's true.
So the nervous system is very interlinked with the immune system. So I realized my fear for my survival is not helping. No. It's really doing the opposite.
Yes.
So that's why after that awareness, to me, I think awareness is really important to cultivate awareness. And that for me really comes from my deepest meditation and every day. And once I have that awareness, I was able to develop a strategy. So I always ask myself, when there's a negative emotion, what is the emotion? Then I ask why, the fear, why is the driving force behind the fear? For me, is the security. Then I say how I can shift it.
Nice.
That's my process for, learn my own personal experience and work with other people. And so really to really come and have a healthy relationship, not being irrationally fearful. So
that's amazing. And we've been talking about silver linings and finding the opportunities and looking at things from a different perspective, even when we are in the middle of crisis. What I love about that story is that you were able to learn and grow through adversity, which is something we hear about a lot, but it's so great to actually see real life examples of people doing that and coming out different.
It's really about stay in the eye of the storm. I think, it's like always saying synchronistic events happen. And the one day I think I was very anxious, and somehow I just saw that phrase, eye of the storm. And I think I realized one thing very big for me, also part of the Elva Philosophy, is inner change, right? And I was always telling people, I said, we can't change the external events and circumstances, but we can change how we respond. And in that moment when I see eye of the storm, I realized I was actually being dragged around by the storm. I actually didn't stay in the center of the storm. So the second time when I was back in Melbourne, and I felt like, wow, I really thought I resolved that issue, right? But my own mindset, my attitude, my mood was still actually being heavily influenced by the external environment. But once I actually see that, I was able to come to the storm, the eye of the storm. It's not easy because it's scary, especially I think in the way you see different conflicting reports, because such a new virus, we don't know much about it. And the mood is dragged and influenced heavily by it. And again, though, I did apply my same technique, try not to read too much news. And so I reduced the news intake. I get myself informed, but not get myself overwhelmed. I think that's a thing.
And I think it's also a great analogy too for what happens generally in the law profession, that keeping ourselves in the middle rather than sort of getting swept around in the storm where we lose control and we become anxious and we become stressed. When you talk about, anxiety and threat and safety and security, these are all things that when I coach lawyers, I hear a lot about. There's always a threat, and it's almost a threat to their physical survival daily, even though it's not an actual threat to physical survival. But the survival brain, as you know, the ancient brain interprets those threats as physical threats. And if we're not aware and we're not connected and we're not meditating and we're not doing those things to, take back control, we could literally be running for our lives every day in this profession.
I think that's a great point you mentioned. And actually, whenever I teach with the lawyers, one of the core concepts I introduce is the double negativity bias. You were talking about the ancient brain, how our brain has that negativity bias, the ancient brain, as a result of the evolutionary process to protect us from the risk and the threats. But I think a few years ago, I was undertaking a training with Dr. Rick Hansen. He is a leading neuropsychologist from America. And when we were chatting, I asked him, I said, we have a negativity bias in the brain. But as a lawyer, right, as a legal profession, our training through law school is all about looking for risks, looking for identified problems.
That's right.
And so in a way, our legal training, legal education, and also the work we do is looking for risks, looking for the worst case scenarios. As a lawyer, I can't tell my client, say, it's going to be fine, don't worry. No, I have to tell them, lay out the worst case scenario for them, right?
That's right.
I do wonder, because again, coming back to the principle of neuroplasticity, as a lawyer, as a legal profession, maybe because our training, our work, our brain has an additional propensity for negativity.
100%. I agree with that.
So maybe even outside of work, that additional negativity might be filtered through as well. So that's why, it may potentially explain why in the legal profession we have a higher rate of anxiety, depression.
Definitely. Right? I definitely believe that to be the case. And so a lot of the work that you and I are doing, I think, is bringing awareness to that, you know, so that lawyers can be aware that, listen, this is something that you are doing because of the training that you've had. So become aware of your thoughts, become aware of your patterns of behavior, what you are looking for, what you are focusing on, so that you can have choice, because awareness, you know, breeds choice. And so using that, looking for what's wrong as a technique rather than a way of life, you know, rather than a way of thinking, rather than a pattern to live our lives. So that's that kind of level of awareness that I'm trying to bring about. You know, you can still be optimistic, even though you are looking to solve problems. It's just reframing it slightly.
Yeah. And I think also coming back to that, you know, what we talked about right from the start about aware of the negativity bias, or even a double negativity bias.
Yes.
And then making that, you know, choice. I think it's a great word, because the principle of the brain is very neutral. The more we're looking at, I'm not talking about the work sense, but maybe more in the, you know, daily life sense. The more we focus on the positive in our daily life, outside of what we're meant to be doing, right? We are strengthening the brain muscles, the neurons, the neural networks for that. So we can become, the more we practice compassion, the more we practice kindness, that part of the neural network is going to be strengthened. So it's easier for us to even see compassion, feel love. It's a very simple principle. But if we constantly complaining and looking at negative side, then that part of the neural network gets strengthened. So look around the world, it's all dark. Yeah. So it's choice.
It's choice. It's definitely choice. Well, Elva, this has been an uplifting conversation. You and I think, can talk about this for a long time. For a long time. But just, you know, I'll just ask you one last question. What's in the future for Peace Lab? What have you got, anything that you're cooking in the lab?
Actually, I've been cooking in the sense, I've been designing something in my head. I haven't been able to put down on the paper just yet.
Yes.
I can see new program, actually virtual program coming online.
Beautiful.
And relating to the broad concept of new normal.
Nice.
The school for new normal. Yeah.
Nice.
I'm someone who doesn't rush, because I think, you know, and I really believe in the right timing for things. And I feel like, and also I'm very big on, like, you know, experience, cultivate, and after I process my own learning, I can share better and more authentically. So there's a few things coming up online, but then I just need the time to finish the exam first.
Yes.
And May and June, definitely, but they're relating the broader skill of new normal.
Beautiful.
How we actually navigate through uncertain time and you know, the territory of uncertainty or even chaos.
I, for one, look forward to seeing whatever comes out of that amazing brain of yours.
Keep me informed, definitely.
Keep me informed. And good luck with your exam. When is that on, tomorrow or?
Today. So it's a take-home exam to answer questions about the brain.
The brain. Well, we better let you go so you can go and do that. And thank you so much for your time, Elva. It's really been wonderful talking to you. And let's tap in sometime soon, and maybe check in and see how you're going with things, and you could, you know, share some more stuff with us.
Of course. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Thanks,
all right. Thanks, Elva. Bye.